What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to Saturday night's late night agenda. That's, well, not really that late tonight. My apologies for starting a bit earlier, but as I mentioned in the video today, I do want to watch the Usyk Dubois fight, so thought we'd jump on at 8 p.m. and we will, of course, run through all the major talking points today. We're going to be speaking about Hugo Ekitike and Liverpool's pursuit of him. We're going to be asking, look, is Alexander Isak really not for sale? Or are Newcastle playing some games here? More on that in a moment. We're also going to be giving you the latest on Ibrahim Konate, Luis Diaz. Reports today suggest that Liverpool will not let Konate go on a free, so it'll either be a new contract or him, well, leaving for a fee. We'll talk about that and we'll talk about everything else linked to Liverpool Football Club over the next 90 minutes. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a wonderful weekend so far. I hope the weather's shining down on you and I hope that, well, life is good for you. So look, of course, tonight I wanted to just wind up the Newcastle fans a little bit with the thumbnail and the title, but there is some seriousness to it. Eddie Howe and Newcastle can't even get their story straight about why Isak didn't play today. I'll let you in on that in a moment, but before I do, a couple of super chats I want to just kick off with, some of them before we even went live. This one from Laser Sharp said, will we get Ekitike and Isak, or we will get Ekitike and Isak? I don't know if both are possible, but again tonight a report comes out that shows that there's a number that would get Isak out of Newcastle, and will Big John pay that or not? Well, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Liz, I hope that you're well over in Florida, my friend, said, I love Snarky Craig, have a great stream. I just love how easy Newcastle fans are to get from a conversation to straight abuse. And it took one little post on X today for them to start losing their minds again. And if there's one thing I hope people should know about me at this point, it's don't give me any encouragement. You don't want to do that because I'm relentless. Right, Craig, did you see us getting Isak and Ekitike? Honestly, as mad as this sentence sounds that I'm about to say, it's possible. And again, I'm not arrogant enough to tell you it's going to happen, but it's possible. Now, whether that's done in this one window or whether that's done over the course of the next year, sincerely, there is a belief out there that Liverpool could look to land both. Now, I know it is so far removed from what we're used to as Liverpool fans, but big old Uncle John seems to be spending freely this summer. And look, all I can say to you is that we haven't gone away. And it's still there. And the story isn't going away either. And again, I'm going to try and link it all together for you over the next 90 minutes. Hammer UK21 said, nice touch by EA with the first tribute to Jota. I don't know of exactly what the tribute is, mate, because I don't play computer games, but any respect or kindness shown towards the Jota situation is always very much respected and welcome, so thank you, sir. Aryan said, we're so lucky to have Hughes and Edwards. We're moving good. We're moving good, my man, and I like the way that we're playing things this summer. Now, look, there's still some stuff that we're a bit nervy about as Liverpool fans. Of course, centre-back being one of them. And we'll talk about that as well tonight. But yeah, Aryan, this summer, it feels like those promises is massive and being fulfilled, which is something I haven't been on here saying many times. So, all of this isn't fair on Hugo, said Eddie. But Eddie, genuinely, I don't think at this point, for what it's worth, Eddie, that Liverpool have any intention of pulling away from the Ekitike deal. I don't think this is us using him as bait. Genuinely, I think at this point, Liverpool are committed to Ekitike. So I do see him coming in one way or the other, Eddie. Honestly, I do. What happens after that, we'll have to wait and see. But I really don't feel like we're just doing this to pull a fast one on Ekitike. I don't. I think Liverpool are so far into the process now with him that I think it'll get done. What's this one? So, to honour and celebrate the life of one of the most passionate FC players, there are 3 new Diogo Jota tifos that have been added to your UT club. And they are, of course, his Wolves shirt, his shirt from Porto, I believe, and, of course, his Liverpool shirt as well. And fair play to EA on that one. Right, so let's start off with the confusion from Eddie Howe and Newcastle about why he didn't play today. So, the company line was that Alexander Isak and I think it was Joelinton perhaps were on tailored personal programs, and that's why they didn't play today in Newcastle's game against Celtic. But that line changed then when Eddie Howe was asked. He said, honestly, that the speculation around his future was distracting and he didn't want to put him in the spotlight. Now, I'm paraphrasing that a little bit, but I'll give you the actual words from Eddie Howe in one moment. But basically, Newcastle can't get their story straight. And if I'm a Newcastle fan looking at this from the outside, it must be really confusing. Now, I was looking at a post earlier on from a gentleman called Zach Lowy, who said Newcastle have now missed out on João Pedro, Matheus Cunha, James Trafford, Mark Gay, Brian Mbeumo, Liam Delap, and Hugo Ekitike. It's not going great for Newcastle this summer. And like I said when I did that tongue-in-cheek video, sincerely, that money that Newcastle could get for Isak could change that football club's future. And I know it's not easy to hear, Newcastle fans, but genuinely take the money. Because one, we're overpaying, and we are. Isak's not worth 120 to 150 in most football fans' eyes. But with the dearth of strikers available and Liverpool's insistence on trying to get him, I think that there's still a chance that that deal happens. Now, Mike McGrath has been writing about this, and he said Liverpool's interest in Isak is long-standing, but Newcastle's owners will not accept anything lower than their valuation of the 25-year-old. That figure of £150 million would be a record fee for a player at a British club. Now, you didn't hear he's not available. You didn't hear there isn't a number. You heard journalists reporting that they have a valuation of £150 million on Alexander Isak. Do we trigger that or not? I don't know. I can't tell you. But Newcastle should be really trying to get their story straight on this one, because he's either for sale or he isn't. There's either a number or there isn't. And Newcastle's flip-flop on this, although they'll say, and their fans will say, that the line has always been he's not for sale. He is. Every player has a price. And I know it's a shitty experience for Newcastle fans right now, but sensibly, I think they should take the money. Because if they had have taken the money initially, they probably could have gotten themselves Hugo Ekitike, or at least had a better opportunity to sign Hugo Ekitike. Now, while Liverpool are moving mad, signing Ekitike, and in a mad world, as deluded as this sounds, Isak's still possible. Amel, this one was retracted, so I don't know what the message was. Carl said, Craig, we need AA secret pin badges and handshakes. Yeah, I'm not really into the whole secret pin badges and handshakes thing, mate. It sounds a little bit too, yeah. Isak and Joelinton unfit, one with squad and one not. Weird, said Almel Music. Yeah, it is. It's very weird, mate. And look, like I said before, the line from Newcastle is changing. You know, it's 1 minute he wasn't fit, and then the other minute it's that he didn't want him in the spotlight. Ultimately, it feels like Isak wants to leave Newcastle. And that doesn't mean he doesn't like Newcastle, he doesn't respect Newcastle's fans. None of this has ever been about that. But there needs to be a bit of self-awareness in here as well at times. And yes, he is a Newcastle player, and nobody can force the sale. But you also don't want a player in there who's feeling undermined. And Newcastle want to give him a new contract, want to up his terms, but PSR means that that's difficult for them to do at the minute. So every aspect of this is still up in the air, in my opinion. And just to get back to Eddie's one, I really don't feel like Liverpool are trying to pull a fast one here on Hugo Ekitike. I don't. And the more I read about Ekitike and his versatility, actually, the more the plan could be here to bring in two strikers. I know it's mad money, but if you move the money to the side for one moment and just think about it, if we sell Darwin, we'll have lost two strikers for different reasons. Obviously, one a tragic accident, and the other one, just didn't work out at the club. So there is space for Liverpool to get two strikers. Now, do we think there's going to be a world where Liverpool pay, let's say, £230 million for those two strikers? Well, we could recoup that money. As mad as that sounds as well, like, let's do some maths on this. If we were to sell Diaz, which it very much looks like, I don't know if there's a policy for Diogo or whatever, but I'm sure that there probably is. But even if there isn't, let's talk about Darwin. Sell him, that's 50 million quid. Sell Diaz, that's probably another 80 million quid. Sell Elliott, that's another 40 or 50 million. Very quickly there, we're up to about 180 million. And that's before we start talking about other fringe players like Tyler Morton, Costas maybe at left back. You can see 200 million quid recouped very quickly. So it's still possible. As mad as it sounds, it's still possible. Eddie said, when will the Hugo deal be done? So the reports that I was reading today suggested next week, Eddie. Now, to the best of my understanding, he didn't play today. He was an unused sub in Frankfurt's friendly. They played a friendly against another club from Frankfurt. And to the best of my understanding, he was an unused sub. So, yeah. Luke said, hey, Craig, genuinely, do you think we get Isak? I don't know. Mate, I really don't know. But I can tell you it won't be from a want of trying. And Liverpool are still in the mix. Now, I want to ask for the first poll of the night, do you think we get Isak? So let's ask this one. Because I have this running in our WhatsApp group as well. We've asked, do you think Liverpool get Isak? So let me just put this poll up. So, will we get Isak this summer? So, will we get Isak this summer? Yes or no? And we'll come back and revisit that one in a moment. Well, in a few moments, to be honest. Right, let's keep going. Again, excuse me, I don't know how to pronounce all those letters and numbers together, but thank you. You said we're still getting Ekitike just joined. Certainly, yes. Look, I agree with everyone, by the way. If you were to pull the plug here on Ekitike, it would be bad form. It would. And I don't think Liverpool are going to do that because they've gone so far along in this one. Christchild said, Craig, can we cope buying both strikers and selling Lucho? No more purchases, just a few outgoings. Look, I would imagine if we bought in both of them, that would be the end of our business in attack, unless, you know, the club really do have something mad up their sleeves. But it could come down to what happens with Chiesa. If Chiesa is going to stay around next season, then I think you could probably bring in 2 to replace 3. The 3 being Diogo, Darwin and Diaz, obviously. It's possible. It really, really is possible. Like, we haven't... Yes, we spent a load of money early in the window. But remember, we're going to recoup a lot of money. And the recouping of money will be what allows us to go out there and splurge some more. And that's why this thing is still not dead, in my opinion, this whole chase for Isak. I think Isak will be like VVD, a January signing, said Milo Baby. Maybe. Look, I'm not sitting here trying to tell anybody we are signing Isak. I'm not, because I don't know that. But I am telling you that there's still life in this story and that it isn't going to go away anytime soon, especially if Newcastle keep fluffing their lines like they are. But here's one, right? I don't know who's watching, who's in the chat. I don't know if you're all Liverpool fans. I don't know if there's a mixture. But sincerely, what do you think happens with Isak? Whether you're a Newcastle fan, a United fan, a Chelsea fan, whoever. If you're in the chat, I want to know what you think happens with Isak. Because, one, Newcastle might not be able to really give him a bumper new contract. And 2, again, he knows now that there's a club sniffing around that wants to be able to give him the opportunity to win a Champions League, a Premier League, and really establish himself. And he is in the prime of his career now. And I know that this feels like Newcastle are getting bullied, or we're trying to bully them. I know that that's the argument from Newcastle fans. But ultimately, it will be a record fee. It will be a god-awful amount of money that, let's be honest, he is not worth. He's not worth 130, 150 million pounds. He isn't. But we're willing to pay that. I think they should take the money. I really do. On Ekitike, just got this sent to me. Understand Liverpool have now improved their offer for Hugo Ekitike. Talks ongoing over add-ons with a total package now circa €90 million. Richard Hughes and Marcus Crush hoping to strike a deal this weekend or early next week. All parties confident. So whatever happens, like I mentioned, we're pushing ahead with the Hugo Ekitike signing, which I'm glad about, because I hate to see us tease one player and run off for another one. Like, I often moaned about Barcelona and other clubs doing that, and I wouldn't like to see us do it. So, yeah, good. Benjamin said, I can't remember if we were like this when Suarez left, but Newcastle fans are pretty aggressive. Furthermore, I think we get him, but 150 million is awful. It's mad money. And I don't know a Liverpool fan who wouldn't say that it's mad money. And you're right about the Newcastle fans. I used to assume that they were up for a bit of a laugh. And granted that this isn't a nice situation for them, but it's not like we're pulling a Real Madrid here and trying to get them to leave the club for nothing. Liverpool are willing to offer a huge sum of money to Newcastle, and Newcastle need the money. They don't need it from the point of view of the having Saudi-backed owners that would happily spend money, but they do need it for PSR, and they need to have that wiggle room. And I'll go through this list again, but the strikers and the players they've missed out on this summer for varying reasons is nuts. So, João Pedro, Cunha, Trafford, Gay, Mbuemo, Delap, Ekitike, all missed. And if Newcastle end up losing Isak, whether it be this summer or next summer, them players aren't going to be changed again. So Newcastle are missing out on genuine targets. And I would say they probably would have had a decent shout with Hugo Ekitike. They probably would have. Someone said, Craig, it's fake. I don't know what you mean, it's fake. What's fake? I'm going to need a proper sentence there, mate. But I don't know what's the fake part. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, understand Liverpool have now improved their offer for Hugo Ekitike to Ben Jacobs. And I do think we're moving towards him becoming a Liverpool player. And I still don't know whether it's genius or whether it's risky, because I'll be honest and say I don't know all that much about Ekitike, but certainly excited by Liverpool being at the very least decisive. Graven said Liverpool needs to sign Isak not only to bolster their attack but also to make the player that want to go stay instead. Well, look, let's talk about Diaz. That looks like it's coming to a conclusion, and it looks to me very much like Diaz will be a Bayern Munich player based off a lot of things that we're seeing. So you've got Barcelona signing or agreeing the deal for Rashford. That probably ends their interest in Diaz. You've got Bayern Munich getting to the numbers that Liverpool are interested in, and apparently that number is about £80 million. Fabrizio Romano said Bayern Munich are set to bid again for Luis Diaz very soon, and with the €280,000 a week wage on offer for Diaz, it feels like he's going to move on. And look, if we can bring in £80 million for Diaz, I think that's incredible money. And you know what? Didi Hamann ain't happy about it, and not from our perspective. He's not happy about what Bayern are doing. This is what Didi Hamann had to say on Bayern's interest in Diaz. To now bring in Luis Diaz, a 28-year-old South American who played 50 games per season for 4 or 5 years and whose long flights home are also a problem. To pay 70 or 80 million for that, while the sale value is zero because he'd be 32 at the end of his contract, I wonder why they even have a campus for the academy. So Didi ain't happy seeing Bayern come in for Diaz, but like we've said, Bayern are another club who've missed a lot of targets this summer, starting of course with Florian Wirtz, who became a Liverpool player. I really hope Newcastle fans know I've nothing against them. I want to make that really clear. I know they hate me at this moment in time, but I've nothing against the Geordies. I think the Geordies are a great bunch of people, like I've said all the way through. And certainly a club that I always enjoy watching and have done over the years. But sometimes in football this happens, and Newcastle can keep saying no, but the longer they keep saying no, the worse the situation seems to be getting for them, because they're missing out on other targets, because they can't really commit the amount of money that Eddie Howe would ideally want. I struggle to call it a rebuild at Newcastle, but building out Newcastle is probably a fairer thing, because their development is at a very tricky point right now. They've done really well to get themselves Champions League football, and of course they ended that drought for a trophy which was well deserved. But I don't think any club should be turning down that amount of money for a player. If this was Liverpool, I think even Liverpool would have to look at it if it was £150 million. It's just an astonishing amount of money, and it would be reflected as being a transfer record for Britain for a fee. So genuinely, if I was a Newcastle fan and I knew that this sale of Isak could help Newcastle, I'd probably belatedly accept it. But maybe, as I've said many times, maybe I'm saying that because I seen Coutinho with us, and I seen what that did for us, and how, well spent money really did change the trajectory of our club. Stevie boy, how are we, dude? Said, had Virgil and Mo not re-signed, would Liverpool be having a transfer window like this? It's a really tough question to answer, Stevie boy. You would have to say we would probably be a little bit less attractive at that point, because, that would be a huge loss to lose those two. So I think we'd be having a far more desperate transfer window than we are. Now we have time to sort out the successor to Virgil. We have time to allow young Rio to develop and see if he becomes the next superstar up top. So, yeah, I think probably not is what I'd say, mate. I think we'd probably spend some money, but I don't think we'd have the same pulling power, perhaps, as we do now. So you thought Liverpool were wrong to turn down 150 million for Salah last season. See, for us, it's a bit different because we don't need the money as much. So Liverpool turning down the money for Salah, I don't think it's comparable, mate, to Newcastle turning it down for Isak, because we have the ability to spend the money. My problem with our owners was that they just weren't spending the money. But we always had the ability to do it and the wiggle room with PSR. But 150 million, it's a lot of wedge. It is. But, Salah's just come off a record year and Liverpool have shown that we don't need the money. So, yeah, I just think slightly different. But I do appreciate your point. What's this stuff about Romano? That has to be bullshit. Somebody's trying to say Liverpool offering 140. Has anybody got that post from Fabrizio if it's true? But let's keep going anyway. So the Wonder Man said, evening Craig, how are you doing? Honestly, mate, amazing. Amazing. So something got posted yesterday and I've shared it with lots of people, but if you'd be so kind, humour me for a second, because I just want to talk about this. Let me see if I can bring this up on screen. 1 second. I want to show you something because I want to say thank you. So let me bring this up on screen. So, right, 1 sec. So this list here is a list of football YouTube dedicated fan channels sorted by views so far this year. And as you can see, we're now the third most viewed club specific channel in the world. Thanks to you. Obviously, United stand way out there in front. AFTV, again, good jump ahead of us. But there comes Anfield Agenda, as you can see on that list. And look, if I drop the list down a little bit further, you can see the likes of Redmen there in 12th place. It's just incredibly emotional. I'll be honest, it's incredibly emotional for us to get there. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for that, for allowing us to be part of your lives and for allowing us to be part, on this journey with you. So thank you all so much for that. It's incredible. And by the way, well done to everybody else on the list as well, sincerely. Wherever you are on that, I see Adam there, so from Forever United TV, friend of ours. Great to see him moving up that list as well. Yeah, just good times for fan content, and well done to everybody. Right, Chris Smith said, if we can trust our scouts, I'd prefer Liverpool to be giving new players 8-year contracts. I'm sick of losing players for cheap or even free. So I get it, mate. And I do think there's definitely a conversation, Chris, to be had around the direction of the length of contracts with the Real Madrid situation. So let's look at Ekitike. From what I can gather, that's going to be a 6-year contract. So that's already a sign that Liverpool are starting to look in that direction. And I don't think we'll be on our own. Because you can't afford to be letting players get into these positions. The likes of the one Ibrahima Konate is in now. And we've seen, obviously, Trent as well before that. So I agree. I do think we're going to try and at least... See, it's difficult because if you're a player, right? And I talked about this with kit deals as well. So Manchester City have just signed, I believe, a 1 billion kit deal with Puma for 10 years. And on the face of that, you look at it and think, Wow, 1 billion, 100 million quid a year for 10 years. But that might not be great business in 6 or 7 years. That's why Liverpool have their kit deals the way that they do, and other clubs as well, maybe 3 to 5 years. So with contracts, it's a similar thing. If you got a player to sign a 7-year deal now, that might not look like great business for that player in 3 or 4 years' time. And it might only benefit the club, because the club could then go, no, sorry, you signed this 7-year deal, like the situation with Diaz now, where we're not willing to up his money. So it's kind of a two-way street, where players probably be reluctant to sign on for the likes of 7 years, unless there's something in that there's going to be a negotiation to up the wages halfway through it or something like that. So that said, Craig, in my opinion, if Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards believe Isak is the guy, I do see them still buying Isak for 150 million. Would like to know your thoughts. The fact that I'm sitting here, my friend, even saying to you it's possible, feels so removed from the norm. But it is. It is certainly still possible. Even if you run the numbers on it, it's still possible. It's crazy to say that, but I agree. If they really, really want him, and there's any indication that Newcastle will soften their stance, I think we'll be there. And that seems to be the take, by the way, from a lot of the media today. So Ben Jacobs said Liverpool are still intent on moving for Alexander Isak if given any encouragement, whether now or in future windows. Eddie Howe said this about Isak not being part of that Newcastle squad today. It was my decision. I decided to send him home due to the speculation around him. But that wasn't the company line that Newcastle were putting out to the media. They were putting out that he was on a tailored training programme along with Joelinton. But then that changed quickly when Eddie Howe was a bit more honest than perhaps he should have been. Neil said Newcastle have shut the door. But they haven't, Neil. They haven't. And that's the thing, mate. They really, really haven't. Even this report from Mike McGrath said that Newcastle's owners value Isak at 150 million. So if they're putting a value on him, there's a number. And that's not closing the door, mate. Closing the door is, I don't care what number you come up with, we ain't selling. Whether it's 150, 170, 200 million, don't care, not for sale. They're not saying that. And also, their manager literally just said, the speculation around him is why I didn't play him. So already this is starting to impact Newcastle, because it's affecting Isak's pre-season. So, again, let's be realists about it. It's possible. And if they want Elliott, let's say, as an example, well, who's to say you couldn't do a deal at 100 million plus Elliott? Which all sounds so mad, by the way. Even just saying these numbers out loud sounds ludicrous. Because, of course, I'm so used to Liverpool operating in a 30 to 60 million quid budget. Kind of, this feels so surreal to us. But, yeah, I've always believed Isak wants to move, and I still do. And I always understood Newcastle fans' frustration. But I do think if they take a step back and look at their PSR situation, it might have some sense to it to sell Isak. David said, do you think Wirtz could outscore Salah this season? No, I don't, mate. Actually, weirdly though, David, I don't really know what to expect numerically from Florian Wirtz. You know, I don't go into this season thinking there's going to be 15 goals and 12 assists. So I don't know. I'm just really, really excited to see how he gets on. But whoever scores the goals, as long as we're winning games of football, I'll be happy, mate. Whether that's Mo, whether that's Ekitike, whether that's Cody Gakpo, Florian Wirtz, it doesn't matter. As long as we're winning games of football, I'll be happy. Gary Renton, and I agree with this, Gary, and I like the way you've even started your post, mate, because it's kind of how I feel as well. Gary said, with all respect to Newcastle, we aren't really their rivals. We're a cut above. And we are. You know, I don't think we're being arrogant, Gary, saying that. We're just further along in the development process than Newcastle are. Newcastle genuinely do remind me of where we were 6-7 years ago, maybe maybe a tad bit longer than that, but in and around that kind of first few years of Kloppo. And we had an owner who didn't really want to spend it. And at the moment for Newcastle, they're kind of restricted because of the rules. And I've always given them credit for that, by the way. I've said it time and time again. Newcastle's owners haven't taken the piss with the rules. They've tried to stay within the rules and operate within PSR. And they deserve credit for that because there has been some really tough situations for them. Jamie, how are we, dude? Said this will go down as the greatest window ever if we get Isak and Hugo and a centre back and a left winger, but increases expectations and pressure. That last part's really true. But Jamie, I believe it was Billie Jean King that said this. Pressure's a privilege, and it is. To be in these positions of pressure, you have to get yourself to those positions. You have to be at the dance, and pressure's a privilege. I like that phrase. But on the window, so for me, I can't see a world where Liverpool sign Ekitike, any left winger, whether that's Gordon, whether that's Rodrigo, whoever, and Isak. I think if we were to be able to get Isak, it would be Isak, Ekitike, and that's it for the attack. And I'd be okay with that. Because again, we can use Ekitike off the left. We can use Isak off the right, through the middle. It wouldn't matter. So yeah, I don't think we'll have any more attackers brought in if we're able to get Isak and Ekitike. I think that'll be the end of it, even with Diaz being moved on. That's my take on it. Now, centre-back, that'll be sorted out one way or the other. So, we asked, will we get Isak this summer? It's really close, this poll. It's very, very close. So if you haven't voted yet, we're going to leave it go a few minutes longer. Please do. We're asking, will we get Isak this summer? Yes or no? Laser Sharp said, we will get them both, Craig. Woo-woo! It's possible, dude. It's possible. And I just feel for Newcastle to some extent as well, because they're missing targets for various reasons. Now, look, I don't know whether Hugo Ekitike would have moved to Newcastle or not. I don't. Newcastle fans would know a lot more about that than me because I didn't really keep up on their discussions with the player. All I was keeping an eye on was the bidding process with Frankfurt. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Can Hugo Ekitike play on the left side? Yes, he can. And that's one of the things that has made me have this stance that I think it could be possible to bring both in. Once we get past the crazy numbers involved in it, if we look at it from a playing perspective, well, we were told that Arne Slot wanted a versatile young forward, and Ekitike is that guy. We already have Cody Gakpo to cover the left. We have young Rio, who can play in off the left in the future or a year or so as well. So, on the face of it, losing Diaz and bringing in Isak and Ekitike as well as a centre-back could be incredible. And it could be possible. Owen said, Isak probably wants to leave. Newcastle may be forced to sell due to PSR. I'd also like a backup DM, especially Angelo Stiller, top 5 in the Bundesliga, created chances and breaking up play. So Stiller, I thought at one point he may end up at Real Madrid because they were sniffing around at one point, or at least his name was being bandied around with them. I totally understand your take on DM, Owen. I just don't know where we're at with that situation. Is McConnell going to get that chance? Is Bajcetic going to get that chance? Or will we dip our toes in the market? Certainly feels like that would be a later in the window or maybe very late in the window decision. But yeah, one injury there to Gravenberch and we could be in trouble. As much as Maka can do the role, as much as Endo can do the role, they do it in a different way. Any update on Canada? Yes, Wayne, I have a little bit of an update here for you, bro. Where with me 1 second, mate. Let me just scroll back up through my notes. This one. So, there is a report today that said Liverpool would demand at least £40 million to sell Ibrahim Konate this summer. The club are extremely reluctant to sell the defender, but also do not plan to lose him on a free transfer. Fresh talks over a new contract are also set to be held. So, that's why I keep saying to people, I feel like this is why we're pausing on Mark A. because Liverpool's plan was never to go out there and bring in a leader. It was to bring in a young centre-back to be able to fulfil the young role that Jarell Quansah had. But with the Canada situation being so up in the air at the minute, I think that's why Liverpool have paused, to keep an eye on Mark A, but also to see if they can convince Ibu to stay. If they can't convince Canada to stay, then we probably see a situation where we look for similar money to Palace are going to look for Mark A, and we try to go after him. But if Canada is able to sign an extension and Liverpool can agree terms, I wouldn't really expect us to go after Mark A at that point. I think you look to a younger defender. Salah is the GOAT, said, I wouldn't mind if we got Isak or Ekitike. Well, at this point, I don't see us pulling away from Hugo Ekitike. I think that situation is going to stay as it is. Liverpool progressing through with that one. But the Isak thing is just going to come down to Newcastle. It's going to come down to Newcastle either accepting that it's going to happen at some point and that they may not have a chance to get this amount of money again. Look, I don't think there's one person in that chat now that thinks Isak's worth 130 to 150 million pound. I don't think any of us feel that. But this is crazy times, and we're in a crazy market for strikers where there's slim pickings out there. And if you're at a point now where Newcastle's owners have a number, it feels like once you say there's a number, it's just a matter of, right, well, let's chip away and see how close we can get to that number or how much we can get them down from that number. But ultimately, there's a number. I like Ekitike, but anything over £80 million is too much, said Rems. I think it's going to be €90 million, based off what I'm seeing, is the offer, or a package. That would put him at about 76, 77 million pound, something like that. And my honest answer, mate, for this window is, and I'm so happy to be able to say this, I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about it anymore, because this is a summer where John's spending, and if we get the players we want, and yes, maybe we've overpaid a bit for them, if it sets us up for the next 3, 4, 5 years and we have this chance to really push on under Arnett and have a trophy-laden time, then bring it on. A lot of people saying Ekitike for that price is crazy. Look, I'm just trusting the process. That's all I can say. And it feels very strange for me saying this, because obviously I've been very critical of our lack of spending over the past few years. But this summer, I am one very satisfied, happy Liverpool fan. And yes, there are still anxieties to be felt around the defensive situation, but ultimately, I can't remember being as excited going into a new season as I am right now. It's incredible. Ellis said, who are you backing tonight? I've kind of been a bit slithery, Ellis, to be honest with you, mate. I've covered myself with a few different options. So I have Dubois. I got Sky had some mad offer of Dubois to win by stoppage at 6-1. So stuck the maximum £11 or €11.50 on that. I have Usyk to stop Dubois from 7 to 12 and land 125 or more punches. And then I have one more that I can't remember what the bet was. It was something like Usyk to be knocked down in the first 6 rounds. I've kind of just tried to cover myself for a few different options just to keep it interesting watching it. But ultimately, I think Usyk by stoppage. But it's heavyweight boxing, so we could easily be sitting here tomorrow talking about Dubois by stoppage, because we know one thing about Daniel Dubois is the man can punch and carries a lot of power. Right, let me just read this one out. Alexander Isak is said to be open to a move to the Saudi Pro League, with Al Hilal reportedly in the mix to sign him. You see, I struggle to believe that. I struggle to believe that. I don't struggle to believe that Al Hilal would have the money, or that they could offer Isak wages that would blow anybody else out of the water. But I struggle to believe that he will feel like he will be satisfied looking back in his career with a League Cup from European football. Because if he goes over there and he's, 3-4 years, maybe he gets a move back to Europe, but I just don't see it. But I wonder would Newcastle fans feel any different if he was sold to Al Hilal? Would they feel less annoyed by losing him, or I don't know? It would be a very strange move for him in this window, but I don't know. I don't. I'd be very surprised if Isak ended up at Al Hilal. This one. Don't know, Craig. If we get Isak, but this transfer window has been fucking great. Having a ball, watching it all. I know, mate. I'm having a blast with this window as well. It's been so much fun, and I never expected Newcastle fans to be so sensitive. Really, I didn't. Like, it's been mad. Anything that we post on any platform about Isak in any way like that, they're on straight away. Abuse, abuse, abuse. You're fat, you're bald, you're Irish, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're that. And I can't help myself, mate. I can't. I am a shithouse by trade. And if you show me, I won't say a weakness, but if you show me an opportunity to push your buttons, well, surely we get Alvarez for 90 to 100 million, 90% chance. He won't move back to the UK. That's the perceived wisdom with Julian Alvarez, is he just won't move back to the UK. He just, doesn't like the lifestyle. It's probably the fairest way. Craig, do you think too many new signings might disturb the current rhythm of the team? So this is something that's come up quite a bit in conversation, and ultimately, no, because where are the new signings? Well, yes, in attack, there's going to be some, but we've had an awful struggle through the middle. So bringing in any centre forward there was always going to be something that was happening. Salah's still going to be on the right. We still have Gakpo for the left, and yes, we might lose Diaz, but again, we're going to bring in another attacker. So no, I don't really feel we're at the stage yet of too many changes. At the back, we have the option to have, as it was, Bradley there and Robbo there. We could go with Kirkes and Bradley. We can go with Frimpong and Robbo. You can mix it up there. The centre-back partnership, in an ideal world, Canade renews, stays at the club, and we bring in another young centre-back. But I'm equally as calm with Mark Gay, but I'd like it done as quickly as possible to give Arnott as much time on the training ground with him. Space Cowboy said, and take no notice, us Irish are inherently Irish and Welsh over English. Rest of the country need to realise the real enemy is invading our shores every day. The Irish and the English are brothers. I definitely agree with you with regards to Scousers. I've always felt like we've a very similar sense of humour. And when I was talking about that abuse, I was talking about that from the Newcastle fans, mate. Scousers have been pretty good to me overall. Not all of them are going to like me. That's okay. I'm a bit Marmite. I get that. But I love the Scouse sense of humour. It's very dry. It's very similar to mine. It's very cutting. And, in Ireland, if we're not destroying you, it means we don't like it. If we're hammering you, it means we like it. It's a sign of endearment from us, basically. How are we, sir? Given we get Ekitike, Isak, or Rodrigo go as second attacker, I think what you've said there could be right. So if I was to guess the rest of this window in attack, Ekitike, and then it'll either be Anthony Gordon, Rodrigo, or Isak. That would be my guess for the other striker or the other attacker. And if I was to put them in order of preference, obviously Isak, Rodrigo, Anthony Gordon. So let's wait and see how it pans out. Sumitro said we might have to rue not signing Cherky. Why? I don't get the level at which Cherky is being spoken about. I know that there's a player there with quality, but really I don't think people realise the differences and the difference of quality between him and Wirtz. If we wanted Ryan Cherky, he'd be a Liverpool player because he wanted to come and join Liverpool. Make no mistake about that. But we didn't. And I don't know why. I didn't make those decisions, but there isn't 1% of me that would rather have Cherky than Wirtz. Not a chance. And I think it's a compliment to us that we were able to get Wirtz, and Manchester City had to resort to second best. And I'm not saying Cherky won't do bits, but ultimately I don't think we're going to regret that decision, because there's a reason Cherky was available for as long as he was without anybody really moving in for what was a pretty affordable deal. Shrimpy said, no left wing replacement. Well, again, mate, I've explained what I think might happen there, but let me read the rest of your comment. Wirtz will take that spot in the squad, but will operate at left side as a 10. So here's my thought process, right? In the situation where it's Ekitike and Isak, well, Ekitike can operate from the left. Gakpo can operate from the left. Young Rio prefers to operate from the left. So there's plenty of options from the left. Jones, as a push, can play off the left. So I don't think we're leaving ourselves short. I think we're just giving ourselves a greater variation of how to attack and how to play. And fluid players and fluid forwards are kind of the way I see Arne Slot going with this, But whatever we say, of course we all have opinions as fans, these guys know what they're doing. And Arne knows the way he wants to play and the type of profile of player he wants. So at this point, once I know the money's there, more than happy to sit back and just trust the process play out. This one, where are we? Or95Q said, if I'm extremely honest, I'd rather have Isak and take Ekitike, Rodrigo and a new centre-back, because Isak is just way too much. You'd rather leave Isak, apologies. But I don't think it's an either-or conversation, my friend. So centre-back's going to be sorted. No matter what happens up top, that's going to be sorted. And then you're into the view of you'd rather Isak, or you'd rather leave Isak and get Ekitike and Rodrigo in a centre-back. But what if I said to you could have Ekitike and Isak and a centre-back? Would that change your thought processes? Because that's possible. It is. Like, we'll play a game in a second. 1 sec, where we'll run some numbers. So we asked, do you think Isak's possible this summer? 52% of you said no. 48% of you said yes. And thank you to everyone that voted. Stevie Boy said, according to Ivan on X, Isak has informed how he wants to move to Liverpool. Look, I don't know what to say to that. Shout out Ivan, but I don't know what to say to that. But again, look at today. Newcastle were saying that Isak didn't play because he was on a personal tailored programme, and then Eddie Howe comes out and says something very different. He comes out and said, it was my decision. I decided to send him home due to the speculation around him. That's, if you've no intention of moving him on, you're not going to start messing with his pre-season. If Eddie Howe and Newcastle really know that Isak's going nowhere, they're not going to try and just, cut up his pre-season. He's going to need the pre-season. He's going to need as much fitness as possible. And they've just taken away the first opportunity of that today. And it can only be, in my mind, because they're unsure about whether he's going to be there or not. John said, do you think we'll get him? So, if you said to me that Liverpool will go to 150, I'd say yes. But I don't know if Liverpool will get to 150. And I don't know if Newcastle's owners will budge from 150. But if you said to me, right, yes, Craig, the 150 be there, then I think, yes, we could get him. Right, so let's play a game. Let's talk about sales for a minute. If you humour me for a second, ignore the centre-back situation, because that's going to be very much one out, one in, probably similar money, so it'll balance itself out. But let's look at future sales that Liverpool may make between now and the end of the window, and look at what the possibility of Liverpool bringing in money is. We've already done some sales, and that'll be taken into account. But right now, Diaz, 80 million quid. That's the number Liverpool want. Elliott, 40 to 50. Let's even go with the 40. That's 120. Tyler Morton, 15 to 20. Even going at the lower number, let's call that 155. What other players are we looking at moving on? Darwin, let's say 50. That's 215 million already in the blink of an eye. So now you can see why the idea of Ekitike and Isak is financially possible. And I haven't even talked about Ben Doak. I haven't talked about any of the other fringe players. I haven't spoke about the money we already got back in for Kwanzaa or the money we got back in for Kelleher. So it's absolutely possible. It's nuts, but it's possible. Is it true about us wanting to swap Diaz for Rodrigo? Well, there are various reports to say that we're interested in Rodrigo. Arsenal have moved away from that as a possibility. So I don't see many other options for Rodrigo right now that are on the table if he does want to leave Real Madrid. Now, I don't know if Liverpool will move from or not, but he could be available and wants to play on the left side. So you never know. You never know. Right. This one from Bailey. Bailey said, go for Isak, Wirtz, left wing, left attacking mid, Gay in, and a centre midfield, or CDM. So, again, I keep coming back to the thing of saying, I don't know if we need a CDM because I don't know what the manager's thought processes are. I know that he rates McConnell highly, and I know that he wants to have a look at Bajcetic. So, if one of those is going to be covered, then I don't think we sign one. But if he's unhappy or he thinks that that's an area of concern, maybe we move for somebody like a Stiller. I don't know. Mohammed, kind of along the same route, said would love better cover for Grafenberg also. I get it. I totally get it, mate. I do. But all I can say is I'm calm about it because, again, Arne will know. And if Arne wants to use Bajcetic or McConnell, I'm cool about that. If Arne doesn't think that after having a look at them in pre-season that they're quite there yet, maybe we change something. Laser Sharp said Isak is done. That's why he was missing from the Newcastle team. Mate, I feel more confident today than I did yesterday around the possibility of Isak. Let's go with that. Like I said, the language being used isn't one to say definitive no. You know, once you start talking about a number, then you're opening up the possibility. And if you're opening up the possibility, then the player knows it, the potentially buying club knows it. And at this point, it feels like he's being destabilised a little bit at Newcastle because it's already started to impact his pre-season. Like we've said, he didn't play today in a game that, you know, we were supposed to play in. So at what point does it become too big a distraction for Newcastle? Soon, I believe, but let's wait and see. Since it's coming out now, there is a number for Isak we should bid for him. Test Newcastle resolve and turn down 130 million, then up it from there. Yeah, but let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Yeah, I feel like there is a number. I do really feel like there is a number. Mark said Isak was sent home for singing Ferry Across the Mersey in the dressing room. I don't know, lads. I don't know. It just feels so insane, but in a good way. David said, Craig, just joined. What's the news? And hope you're well. So I guess the big story of the day is the confusion around the Isak situation. So when he wasn't played today or wasn't in the team, for the game against Celtic. At first, Newcastle told the assembled press that it was because he was on an individual programme, same as Joelinton. But yet Joelinton, I don't believe, travelled. But Isak did. Then he was pulled out from playing, and they said it was because of his tailored personal programme, until Eddie Howe spoke to the media, and then that changed. Eddie Howe said, "It was my decision. I decided to send him home due to the speculation around him." So obviously Eddie Howe feels it's a distraction for Isak and Newcastle. And at what point does a distraction become the possibility to really derail their entire pre-season? The Saudi bid is a smokescreen for the situation. There's not one part of me at all that thinks he really wants to go to Al Hilal and play in the Saudi Pro League. Not at 25. Not with hearing him speaking before about wanting to challenge for the biggest honours in Europe and the Champions League. I don't for 1 second feel like he wants to go to Al Hilal. He would be far better served staying at Newcastle than moving over there. Yes, he'd probably get a load of dough, fair enough, but Joseph said, "How often would you play and start young Rio this season?" It's a really tough one, Joseph, to answer. I probably have a better indication of where I'm feeling about him at the end of the pre-season. But I tell you what, mate, that 45 against Preston didn't half excite me watching him. He is, just heading for 17? This is why I'm talking about the left side and selling Diaz not being maybe as big a potential heartache as some people feel, because Rio's a good option there. And Cody Gakpo, maybe he's the first choice starter on the left. Maybe Rio's the backup, and then maybe you've got Ekitike/Isak, and if needs be, we can change up the way that we play a little bit and maybe tweak the formation to play both of them, one slightly in off the left. So, exciting times. And I love the idea of Rio getting chances this season. I've said for many, many years on here, one of my favourite things in football is a young, cocky, arrogant, pacey kid who runs at fullbacks and doesn't have any fear. It's one of my favourite things to behold watching football. Like, tell me watching Lamine Yamal play football does not make you feel like a kid. The dude just does things that my brain can't even comprehend. And I'm not saying that Rio is Lamine Yamal, but fearlessness. I just love it. I love that impetuous nature of a young, pacey, tricky player. And Rio looks like he has that in abundance. Sarath said, "I think we're becoming weak on the right, Craig. Don't you think we only have Salah and Frimpong, given that we're selling Elliott?" I guess the answer to that could come down to what happens with Chiesa. So there's always been the question mark over the right side, mate, like you've said, and it's a very fair point. We've got Szoboszlai who can operate there. We've got Frimpong, like you've just mentioned. And if Chiesa does stay around, and I'm still unsure about that, he's another option there on the right. Also, let's not forget, just because Cody Gakpo plays on the left and Rio plays on the left, it doesn't mean that they can't go across and play on the right as well if we need to. So I get it, but again, I think if we have the bodies, we'll be fine. And I do think we're getting to the point where we'll have the bodies there to do it. Is Rodrigo Goish off the table, said Ben. Not at the minute, Ben, no. Not off the table. The last thing that I'd seen here was from Fabrizio Romano saying Rodrigo is in two minds. He loves Real Madrid and feels he could still give a lot to the club, but he feels he has the opportunity to be a star at another club, and he's now deciding on his future. So I think whatever the club is that's going to make the play for Rodrigo, whether it's Liverpool, whether it's whomever, you're going to want to wait to see that the player's made his mind up yet. And I can understand it. He grew up in Brazil, and the idea of coming and playing your career at Madrid and maybe playing right through your career, I'm sure when he signed for them, it was a really proud day, and I'm sure he's enjoyed his time there. So to move on is probably moving on with a heavy heart, but if he does do it, I think we could be right there in the mix once he makes his decision. So let's wait and see. I've always been somewhat dubious about whether we really have interest in Rodrigo or not, or whether it's just, somebody putting two and two together. How do we feel about the Diaz situation, by the way, as Liverpool fans? Are we disappointed? Not with the player, I mean, let's just even talk about the sale. So he's 28 and he's right in his peak. He's probably just come off his best season in a Liverpool shirt. I think I come down on the side of agreeing with Edwards and Hughes that if £80 million gets put down on the table, that's a number that I feel is very good business. And it would allow us to bring in, let's just use Rodrigo as an argument here, for probably the same money. And you're getting somebody who is very much experienced, but 3 years younger. And hungry to prove himself. So for me, I think if you got that 80 million, I understand the sale for Diaz. But the 55, 60 millions wasn't really doing it for me as a fan. But 80 million quid, if they can get that, I totally understand the sale, as much as I like having Lucho at the club. And see this, by the way, Newcastle fans, see what I'm doing here? Talking about selling players for realistic numbers and thinking it's decent business. You know? Right, I have a few more comments I want to get through. That one. This one. Adam said, apologies if you've already answered this. Is there a chance we get both Hugo and Isak? Yes, there is. Would 100 million in Darwin or Elliott be reasonable? Yes, it would. Look, I can't tell you whether Eddie Howe and Newcastle want to sign Darwin or Elliott. I know they were interested in Elliott in the past. But yeah, it would be, why not? Seems like a decent deal to me. But yes, the idea of both of them is absolutely possible. And for what it's worth, I would be very surprised if we don't follow through with Ekitike at this point. And if Isak comes up, well, then we could have the strikers that Newcastle fans were maybe dreaming about a few weeks ago themselves. This one from Lee. Isak wants the move. He would have played otherwise. I think he wants the move, Lee. I've always felt he wants the move, but I also feel that he's respectful of Newcastle and their fans because they've always treated them well. They gave him the chance to come to the Premier League. They paid good money for him, and they have nurtured him to become the player that, clubs like us are queuing up to be willing to pay serious money for. So I've never had any doubt that he'd like the move, but I've also never had any doubt that he's very grateful and respectful to the way he's been looked after in Newcastle. Laser Sharp said, best transfer window I can remember. Edwards and Hughes are the real deal. I can't argue against that, mate. Like I said, I had 3-4 years of frustration, maybe even longer than that, calling out the owners, asking where the money is. And I always said that if the time ever comes where they start acting like we'd like them to, and they start really showing that ambition to win, I'll shut up. And you have not heard one negative word from me this summer about the transfer business, the owners, the money. I'm really, really happy as a Liverpool fan, and how could I not be? Ahmed says, Craig, how does it feel to be amongst the most influential Liverpool fans out there? Honestly, surreal. And you're probably not going to expect me to give you this answer, but in all seriousness, I take that responsibility seriously. I've always wanted to be a good ambassador for our fans. People might laugh at that, but I have. I've always wanted to have a sense of humour, to be honest, open, and to be welcoming. I never expected to get to the point where, our channel has the audience it does. I never felt we deserved it, and I still don't feel I deserve it, and Connor deserves it. I feel an immense sense of pride, and I want to do people proud. That's the honest answer. I take this role very seriously, and I want to be a good influence on younger people because there's too many negative influences on particularly young men at the minute for me. And yeah, man, I'm humbled, but I'm very proud. Very proud. Let's be honest for a second. Has there ever been a more exciting time to be a Liverpool supporter whatsoever? And whatever happens with Isak, this window already has blown me away. More to come. You've said it all, Douglas. You've said it all, bro. Yeah, how could we not be? This feels like fantasy football. This feels like, somebody else's club, and we're in this mad position. And to do this as well off the back of probably the most surprising piece of silverware of my time as a Liverpool fan, maybe outside of Istanbul. Did not think going into the start of last season with a new coach that we were going to win the Premier League. So that felt like a beautiful surprise. And now you hope you want to build on that then, and you think, right, Arne's shown what he can do. The club, obviously, renewed Virgil and Mo, and you want that goodwill and good vibes into the next season. And so far, so good. And, bring it on. Cannot wait for the next season. Cannot wait. Obviously, the stuff with Diogo was incredibly surreal. It was all surreal. It still doesn't feel real. Even watching clips of him now, it doesn't feel real that we won't see him again. So, yeah, that's obviously the big down point of everything over the last few months. But, apart from that, incredible. And for me as well, I get to have Adidas launching as Liverpool's kit manufacturer in August. And that, to me, has always been a dream for me, to see the three stripes back, because it feels right. It feels like a good fit. And I can't wait to see Liverpool players rolling out in the three stripes again. Cal said, Craig, us being in for two world-class centre-forward slows how much Slot valued Jota and how important he was. We're not looking to bring in an option as cover. I think I mentioned at the end of last season, you could see that Arne really valued Diogo. Even when he wasn't at his very best and clearly was suffering with that lung injury, he was choosing him ahead of Darwin. And it always felt like Arne had the faith and trust in Diogo and knew that he was a clutch player. So I agree with you, mate. Do you have a pick of the new kit? Yes. 1 second. 1 second. I've loads of them. Bear with me. Right, where's the red one? So this one was leaked yesterday, which is apparently the away kit. So that one was leaked yesterday. And that one looks like it's going to be Liverpool's away kit for next season. So I'll let you have a look at that while I grab this one here. 1 second. So that's the away one. And then this one is the home one. So yeah, looking sexy. I can't wait for that red one. And the green one as well. I can't wait for that. But yeah, that's the home shirt, and the creamy white one, or the white one, is the away one. That is where we are currently at with the shirts. For me, it'll be the red one and the green one. They'll be the two that I'll be buying. The red home is unbelievably nice, said Danny Plays Football. Yeah, it's called strawberry red is the colour that they're calling that, apparently. Terry said, what advice, if any, do you think Alonso is giving Rodrigo about Liverpool? I would hope that he's saying to him, look, if you are to leave Madrid, you will certainly be loved and welcomed and enjoy your time playing for Liverpool. You'd like to think that was the case, but I'd also say he probably doesn't want to lose him, because of all the players in that dressing room that do have lots of egos, Rodrigo certainly has never struck me as a player that carries around an ego. He's always seemed like a humble man, and yeah, honestly, I think Alonso probably wouldn't want to lose him, but if Rodrigo wants more game time and he can't be guaranteed it, I totally understand that as well. Scouts Will, how are we, dude? And thank you for being a member. Said Hughes and Edwards have played a blinder. Yeah, they have, mate. It's been remarkable to see. Like, we have had a great window, and there's still more to come. And if you look around at other clubs and even struggling to do their business, it's nuts. What's this? So this is coming out around Arsenal's deal for Gyökeres just right now. It says breaking, there is complete deadlock in the negotiations between Arsenal and Sporting for Victor Gyökeres. The situation is so complicated that Gyökeres' father broke down in tears because talks aren't moving forward. The Portuguese club are determined not to lower their demands. Now, I was watching Back Pages tonight last night, and there was lots of optimism that that deal was going to get done, and I still think it does. It feels like they've come too far now that you're talking about a few million here or there, and I can see him becoming an Arsenal player. In all honesty, I don't think that one falls apart personally, but it's also weird seeing how much Arsenal are struggling to get it done. You know, the player clearly loves the idea of going to play at the Emirates. Arsenal clearly need a centre forward, and you know, we're not talking 100 million plus numbers here. We're talking, what is it, 63, 65 million pounds, something like that. John Begg said, Craig, what do you think of fake kits, mate? The price of kits nowadays are a joke. So I agree with you on the price of kits. So this is the way I look at it, mate. It depends on where you are in your life. So I can afford to buy the real shirt, and because I'm fat as well, I like the consistency of size, of knowing what I'm getting there with the shirt. So I would always buy a real shirt for me. But when you've got kids and they grow fast, and you know, I like my holidays to Turkey for obvious reasons. And I think you're right, they take the piss with the prices. Like, it's absolutely disgusting. I was looking at the kit earlier on that was leaked and had a price tag on it for New Zealand and Australia. It was 200 Australian dollars and 220 New Zealand dollars. Now, I'm sure that's the Vapor version, but, or whatever Adidas' version of that is, but it's ridiculous. You know, what are you talking now for a name and number and badges on a shirt? £110, something like that. It's absolutely crazy, and it feels counterintuitive to talk about cracking down on fake kits, meanwhile at the same time charging people astronomical money. I definitely feel like something could be done on the kids' kits at the very least, to give kids, I don't know, a 40 quid shirt or something. Something could be done there to make it more affordable for parents. You know, as adults, fair enough, we make these decisions, and if you want to buy a shirt, that's your own cut. But you know, nobody wants their kids to miss out. Nobody wants their kids to feel different on the playground or out there on the pitch. So it's a tough situation, and I totally understand parents going down the other route. I totally get it, and it's just greed in football. David said as well, worst thing is those kids cost like a tenner to make. So we all sit here and celebrate when players get these sponsorship deals and when clubs get these massive kit manufacturer deals and all this other shit. But ultimately, all this stuff comes at a cost, and you and I and football fans usually bear the burden of these costs. It's yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It really is. Like, if you had 3 or 4 kids and they're all Liverpool fans, even if you best intentions in the world, if you want to just be a loyal fan and buy the strip from the club every year for your kids, and no, I get it, you don't have to buy the kits, I get it, but look, We live in the modern world. People want to be the same as their neighbours and friends. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money if you're handing out, what, 50, £60 for kids' shirts times 4. Just came in. Do you think Isak's head is turned? Yes, I do. No, I'm not saying it's not a retrievable situation for Newcastle. I'm not saying Isak's 100% leaving, but I feel like, yes, he wants to move. Now, again, ultimately that is going to be a Newcastle decision. Here's one from an Irish perspective. Fabrizio Romano said, Evan Ferguson to AS Roma. Here we go. Deal agreed with Brighton on an initial loan with a €40 million buy option. Evan Ferguson preferred Roma ahead of several clubs keen to get the agreement and is now verbally agreed between all parties. New striker for Gasperini and Roma. And as an Irishman, very proud to see Evan Ferguson going over there and trying his hand in Serie A. Wish him nothing but the best. So let me ask that question tonight about Isak. Okay, so has Isak had his head turned? Can somebody tell me how far we are away if you've got the boxing on? Because obviously I'm on streaming, but one eye on the boxing because I want to watch the main fight on the card. So can you let me know if we're getting closer to the main fight? And I'll keep streaming until we get closer. So yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to delete that one. Sorry, because I spelled his name wrong. Sorry, we'll go again. Right, so has Isak had his head turned? Yes or no? Now, that doesn't mean you think he's leaving, but do you think he wants to leave, I guess, is the question. So 7 rounds left until the Usyk Dubois ring walks. Thank you, Keane. So 7 rounds, then the decision if it goes the full distance, and then the bullshit afterwards. I would probably still a good 30 minutes left, I'd say. It doesn't start at 10:45, Billy. It doesn't. The there's an 11 p.m. cutoff point for Wembley, so they have to be finished by 11 p.m. And to the best of my understanding, it was a 9:45 ring walk time. But again, these things often don't go to plan. But yeah, there's a curfew of 11 p.m. for Wembley. How would you feel about trying Soboslai false 9? It's a possibility, as is Wirtz, mate. Like we've said, there is a world where I can see us going into some games, maybe playing something like the 4-2-2-2 that we've spoken about. So it's absolutely possible. Itachi, how are we, dude? Said evening, Craig. So there is a chance we get both Ekitike and Isak. Can this happen? Can we afford it? One for Diaz replacement and one on left wing. That's nuts. Well, I ran through some potential numbers earlier on, mate. By the way, if you can, hit that like button for me. We're up at 905. Be lovely to get it over the 1,000. Yeah, we ran through numbers earlier on about potential sales, even pushing Canade to the side. You're up over 200 million very quickly. So yes, it's absolutely possible. This one. Some Stephen said Newcastle will not accept anything lower than 150 mil. That's the prerogative, Stephen, like I've said all the way through, mate. But there is a number, and that's the thing. If there's a number there, then it's up to Liverpool or any club whether they feel like they can access the 150 and whether it's worth pursuing it. But there is a number, so as you said, if it's 150, it's 150, but we're already from a point of, well, he's not for sale. Now there's a number. So stance is weakening there a little bit. You said via Mike McGrath, Telegraph. Oh, yeah, no, I read that one out earlier on, mate. I have it here in front of me. 1 second. So the post you're talking about there said Liverpool's interest in Isak is a long-standing one, but Newcastle's owners will not accept anything lower than their valuation for the 25-year-old. That figure of £150 million would be a record fee for a player at a British club. So, seems like there's a number. Could you imagine our bench next season? Oh, mate, honestly. If things go the way they could go, I think squad depth won't be a problem. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, mate. The bench next season could be tasty. Damon said, would you include Elliott in a deal for Isak? And do you think Newcastle would listen to that? Well, you'd have to talk to Harvey first. You know, first and foremost, this is a big move for Harvey Elliott in his career. Whatever happens next for him. So he's going to have to take the time, speak with his family, and find the offer that he thinks is one that works best for him. Now, if that happens to be Newcastle, and Newcastle are open to the idea of Elliott, why not? But you got to be respectful to Harvey as well, and it's going to be him leaving Liverpool with a heavy heart, so it should be the move that works best for Harvey Elliott, in my opinion. Mr. MH said, Craig, just wondering, if we get Isak, can we also get Rodrigo? I'd be really surprised if that happened. Like, I would say no, off the top of my head. Because then you're talking about, let's just say £80 million for Ekitike. At Newcastle's valuation, 150 for Isak. That's 230, and then Rodrigo's surely going to cost the best part of £80 million as well. So you're up there to 210 million, and that would mean Liverpool would have a spend of about 400 million in this window. Now, granted, again, as mad as all that sounds, we could still recoup 260 million quid in this window, and that would leave you with a spend of 140. So, in a fucking mad world, it's not out of the question. So again, I'm going to come back to something from Dave Powell the other day, and I kept bringing it up for a reason, because I knew as the window went on, numbers were going to become important in lots of people's minds. And the story from Dave Powell the other day, I'm trying to find this story because I have to go back a few days. Sorry, bear with me. I think I may have gone back too far. The gist of it was, anyway, that Liverpool had the wiggle room, even if they bought Isak, to spend another 200 million without selling anybody, and they wouldn't have PSR concerns. Yeah, apologies, I can't find the original post, but that was the gist of it, that Liverpool could sign Isak, spend another 200 million quid, and still not have PSR concerns. Craig, will you watch the All-Ireland tomorrow? I won't, mate, no, but I will be streaming tomorrow night. My relatives that were supposed to be coming down for dinner, they had some work issues, so they had to push it a week, so I'm going to be here tomorrow as planned, so I'll be back tomorrow night for the normal stream. Chris said liked and subscribed. Legend, Chris. Thank you, bro. Right, where are we? This one. Said Rems, said, do you think this window is setting us up to dominate both domestically and in Europe? I'm not arrogant enough to say yes, but let me rephrase it a little bit, mate. I think it's setting us up with the objective to be dominant domestically and in Europe. But I don't think anybody could ever be so arrogant as to think we have a God-given right just because we've signed good players. You've still got to go out there, work hard every day. You've got to have a little bit of luck along the way, and you've got to make sure that you don't have too many injuries. But that's the aim at the minute, to make sure that Liverpool can try to do that. This is the one, Mark. Mark's a legend. Can we get some love hearts in the chat for Mark, by the way, our chief moderator? If I need something, he's like that. He's so helpful behind the scenes as well. So can we get some love in the chat there from Mark? So this is the post. He said, based on Liverpool's net plus PSR position and assuming a profit for 24-25 expected, then using the example of a £20 million profit plus allowable deductions and 105 PSR limit, and that PSR limit again was, remember, any club in the Premier League in a 3-year period can lose up to £105 million. It says Liverpool could still lose more than £200 million in 2025-26 and be PSR compliant after Isak, Wirtz, Kirkes, Frimpong and Mamardashvili. So we have the ability to do it, but whether the owners follow through with as much money, look, we have to wait and see on that one. Oh, this just coming into me now as well. Things flying into me here tonight, right? What have we got? So Florian Plettenberg, just backing up basically what Ben Jacobs said. Can I say this? I don't know Ben Jacobs, by the way. Never spoke with the lad, never interacted with him. But he's playing a blinder in this transfer window from a Liverpool perspective with stories. He has been so quick. I would say he's been the star boy in this summer's transfer window from Liverpool news. Right, so anyway, Florian Plettenberg said, Liverpool have now submitted a second written and new offer for Hugo Ekitike. Personal terms are 100% agreed. Ekitike wants to join Liverpool. Positive negotiations between the clubs and Eintracht are now reviewing Liverpool's second new offer. Deal on. So looking like that one's definitely trending in the right direction. Sav said we should be focusing on centre-backs. We will, mate. We will, but this is the situation. Liverpool need to know what type of centre-back they want to go after. And the plan was to sell Kwanzaa and to go out and bring in another young up-and-coming centre-back, whether that's Jarell Haddad, whether that's the kid from Parma, or whether that's somebody else. The situation with Ibrahim Konate is a fluid one at the minute, where Liverpool don't know whether he'll extend or not. And if he does extend, then they'll stick to the plan of going out to bring in a young centre-back. If he doesn't extend, and that decision will probably be made soon enough, then Liverpool will look to sell him this summer, bring in Mark Gay, and then go after the young centre-back as well. But that's the delay, as I see it. So don't worry, we're not intentionally leaving ourselves short. They will know what they need to do with centre-back, but they also just need to know the lay of the land first. AM Tech said, imagine Newcastle sell Isak and get none of their targets, as the trend thus far suggests has been good incomings for Liverpool, keep going. And that's why the other day when I said to Newcastle fans in that little tongue-in-cheek video that they should bite their hand off for the money, because now they've lost Ekitike, or any chance they had of him. And we ran through this list earlier on, and I want to give credit to the person that posted this. So Zach Lowy said, Newcastle have now missed out on João Pedro, Matheus Cunha, James Trafford, Mark Gay, Brian Mbeumo, Liam Delap, and Hugo Ekitike. They may not have had to have missed out on, let's say, one or two of them if they had have had the PSR wiggle room to spend a bit more. And that's why I kept saying they should bite their hands off for this money. Because yes, they would have had short-term pain with Isak, but they would have been able to build a squad out. And remember the last time Newcastle were in the Champions League, their league form deteriorated quite a bit because they weren't used to those 2 games a week. And Eddie Howe knows he needs to build that squad out, but they also need to do it within the rules of the framework that's there. So, yeah, they should have taken the money, and they should still take the money, in my opinion, because it would give them the wiggle room to go out there and do what they need to do. Thank you, Tony, and everyone giving me the updates in the chat about the boxing. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Darshan said Newcastle's just salty. That's why they've not accepted our offer. It's not a nice situation for Newcastle fans. I get it. Like, I've always understood that, and I've tried to explain my position on this as best as I can, but a lot of them don't want to listen to anything I have to say. It's just straight to abuse. So let's wait and see what happens. But I'm pretty glad of where my club is at and where we're headed for this season. Fireburn said Eddie Howe looked broken today and his comments made no sense. One, he expects Isak to join them. It's his player. I agree. It's very weird, that situation today, and it certainly hasn't helped Newcastle. I think they should have taken the money, and they should take the money. I'm going to keep saying that. They should take the money. Mark said Jake Paul says AJ fight will happen. I'd seen Eddie Hearn kind of talking about that earlier on as well. They were talking about AJ Jake Paul as a warm up before Tyson Fury, and look, that would be hilarious if it happens. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That would just be insane. Stephen McGrew said, hope we focus on a couple of centre-backs after we sell either Chiesa, Elliot Nunez and Diaz, maybe even Canade. Need defenders. We do need defenders, mate, you're right. We definitely do, but this piece here earlier on from Footy Insider said Liverpool would demand at least 40 million to sell Canade this summer. The club are extremely reluctant to sell the defender, but also do not plan to lose him on a free. Fresh talks over a new contract are also set to be held. So hopefully he can agree an extension and we go out there and sign the young centre-back. That was the plan. But if not, then maybe we move towards Mark 8. So Gordon Skreska, again, you're saying again what money? Do you think I have a fucking clue what you're talking about? Like, you aren't the only person in the chat, dickhead. Calm down with the again what money. Just shut the fuck up. If you've got something to say, either pose it in a question and I'll read it or I won't, or send it in a super chat and I'll read it, or just shut up. But jumping up and down in the chat like a petulant little bitch is not going to get you very far. So again, stop being so entitled and calm the fuck down. Weird little clowns. Lukey Boy said, listen, if they don't want to sell, that's fine. At the end of the day, it's their player. It is. But again, you either say, I don't want to sell, but you don't put out a number. Like, it's weird saying, we're not selling, but then briefing that there's a number. It's one or the other. He's either not for sale or he is. And the longer you continue to say that maybe he's not for sale, if the money's there, then you're just wasting your own time in the window, and you're taken away from your own time from being able to go out there and bring in a player. Mods, feel free to just throw that idiot out. I mean, the absolute state of his comments. Where have we got? Joe. How are we, Joe? Joe Wilkinson said, apologies if this has already been spoken about, but I find it weird that Newcastle has effectively owned by the same people as Al Hilal and they're given permission to talk to themselves. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like, do Al Hilal have the money to buy him? Yeah, of course they do. But do we really think that Alexander Isak wants to move to Al Hilal? No. Respectfully, no. They're 70%, 75% owned by the Saudi royal family or the public investment fund that own Newcastle. So I don't see... I was going to say I don't see the benefit of them selling to Al Hilal, but I guess in some way they're probably thinking of us as a rival, which they shouldn't be, in my opinion, because they're not at the same point as us at this moment in time. I think we're a 1 to 3 team in the league, and they're a 4 to 7 team in the league. So sometimes you just think your determination to hold on to a player, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. And the idea of selling him to Al Hilal just feels like, well, let me put it this way. It's not going to look great to him that you're stopping him from moving to Liverpool, is it? Because ultimately, yeah, you can go off to Saudi there, mate, but, you know, so we are willing to sell you, but we're not willing to sell you to the club you want to go to. Which is, again, their prerogative, but it's only going to feed into an unhappy player, in my opinion. Craig, do you think we might only get Gay and use Endo, Gravenberg, and even by Cecic, fourth choice option for centre back? I think we'd be foolish. Blue or Blue Blur 1986, mate. I think we'd be foolish if that was the case. Because we can't rely on Joe Gomez not having an injury or two. We just can't. So I think at the moment we need one centre back. If Canada goes, it's got to be two. What do you think of UEFA, who have downgraded our Club World Cup Winners' Trophy to an Intercontinental Cup? I don't really care about it, to be honest. The trophy that we will have so far will say Club World Cup on it, and UEFA and FIFA trying to rewrite history to big up the tournament they currently have. It is what it is. Ultimately, it's not a tournament I'm arsed about, outside of maybe the money at this point. It's never going to be bigger than the Champions League to me. The Champions League is the prestige club tournament in world football for me. Nasser said, "Hi Craig, coming in late. What's the news about Isak and Canade?" So on the Canade one, mate, Liverpool aren't willing to let him run down his deal and go on a free. They still hope to renew him, but the reports today suggested that if they can't find that way through, then the plan will be to sell him this summer. And the Isak situation it's a weird one, because Eddie Howe said a few things today that let's just read them out. I've had discussions with him, Isak, but that's not abnormal. I respect the player's career and how short it is. And then after that, Eddie Howe came out, asked about why that the player hadn't played today, and he said basically, well, he didn't say basically, he said exactly, 1 second. He said, "It was my decision. I decided to send him home due to the speculation around him." Everything there is sounding like they think Isak's head is in the wrong place or isn't focused. So what do you do then? You've surely got to double down and put him back in the preseason, or admit that you're going to look to sell and sell. But dragging it out doesn't benefit anybody, I don't think, here, because ultimately Newcastle are going to have less time to bring in replacements, and you know it will fuck up their own preseason. So yeah, it feels like, as much as they're saying not for sale, not for sale, not for sale, that's not the way they're acting to me. E-Man said, "Craig, for wingers, if we do somehow get Isak and Ekitike, do you think on the left we would manage with Wirtz, Cody, Rio, Chiesa, and maybe even Doak?" Well, Doak will be sold, but there's nothing to say that we don't stick Ekitike as an example, as a wide left player, in a game or two if we need to. So yeah, there's still possibilities there. Oh, I'm getting sent in more stuff now. 1 second. I always get excited when I see Connor typing and posts about to come in. I know it's difficult to say, but from 1 to 10, how confident do we get Isak? I wouldn't. If you said to me that Liverpool were willing to spend 150 million, I'd say 9. But not knowing what Liverpool are willing to spend, 6 maybe. Yeah, I'd say 6 now, 9 if I know that Richard Hughes. If I know El John will write a check for 150, then 9. But at the moment, I'd say 6. Yesterday, I was probably 4. After that preseason game with Celtic today for them, and Eddie Howe's comments, I've only been more encouraged than less. After 6 weeks of rest, Newcastle saying his games have been managed. The math ain't mathin'. Well, yeah. But, we did that. We didn't play Virgil. because our pre-season was hampered a little bit. We didn't play Ali. We didn't play Maka. Thank you to everyone telling me going into the 10th round. Appreciate it. I only need to know when they're really ready for the ring walks before I jump off, because I only have to turn the TV on, basically. Do you think Robbo would work as a centre-back? No, I don't. No, I know he played there in the second half of the game against Preston, but I wouldn't be comfortable with Robbo as a centre-back unless we were in a real pinch. I know he's played in the back left of a back three, I think, for Scotland at one point, but no, I don't think Robbo ultimately would be good enough at centre back. What's this one? Second. Stephen said Gyökeres was out of travelling squad, same as Isak. Similar responses from managers. Interesting. Isak went, like Joelinton, I don't think went to the game, if I'm not mistaken. But Isak did, and then the decision was made not to play him. I think they've only added fuel to the fire with that situation today. Every club in this scenario has to look like they've tried everything to stop a player going. They have to sell their reluctance to their fan base. But at some point as well, you have to look at your own situation, and is it impacting your window? Is it impacting the dressing room? Is it distracting Eddie Howe's pre-season? All of these things are valid concerns, and it seemingly is. Am I doing a boxing watch along? No, I'm just gonna watch the fight. Me and the missus will watch it, mate. We big boxing fans in this house, so that's why we started the stream earlier tonight. I wanted to make sure I could watch the main fight on the card. Do you think we get a 6? I would honestly say I don't know, Dan, mate. It will come down to, for me, whether he thinks McConnell and Bajcetic are ready to be the backup or not. I think it's not the biggest of priorities at the minute. Craig, do you think Newcastle are not letting the news out that Isak wants a move, given that he missed the game? How do I say this respectfully? I already know that Isak wants to move. That's not a question in my mind. But the question is, how firm would he be with Newcastle to try and push through that move? And I don't know the answer to that, because, again, Newcastle have been good to Isak. They paid good money for him. He's been well treated up there by the fans. He's certainly blossomed playing with them. And I'm sure he feels an immense amount of gratitude and respect for Newcastle. But ultimately, as Eddie Howe said, players' careers are short, and this is a big chance for him to move to a club that are ready to challenge for the Champions League and are ready to challenge for the Premier League in his peak. That's important. Do you think Gravenberch will have enough game time? Gravenberch? Of course. He's the starting number 6. No doubt in my mind he'll have enough game time. It's Szoboszlai I'd be most concerned about in the midfield. Tick in the box said, is Isak as great as we all think? Salah likes to score. With Isak in also, we might not get the chances we would. Look, I will say to you, he's overpriced. And I would say that there are certainly concerns buying Isak. But what I will also say is, if there's a world where we bring in Ekitike as well, that very much negates some of my concerns about Isak's fitness, because you then have another option. If it was just Isak and he picked up an injury and we'd no centre forward, that's a problem. But if you brought in Ekitike and Isak, that certainly alleviates my concerns about Isak's fitness. So that's where I'm at. But the money is, there's no part of me that thinks he's worth the money that's been spoken about, either at 120, 130, 150. I think he's a £90 million footballer, but this is the way the market is. Have you seen Barcelona looking at Rodrigo? Yeah, no, I don't believe that for 1 second. Yeah, I don't believe for 1 second Real Madrid will entertain selling Rodrigo. And I know there's been business between clubs before, but I just don't see that one. And also, what message does that send to Marcus Rashford, who you're bringing in with an option to buy? We already know you're not going to be good enough on the left. Could Isak potentially be wanting to go to a different club? But who? Like, apart from the Saudi Pro League and the money there, who else in the world right now has the ability to spend over £120 million? There's not many. There's not many, and it ain't going to be Bayern Munich because they have Kane, and it ain't going to be Real Madrid because, you know, they've got already enough superstar headaches to be dealing with. Manchester City don't need a 9. Arsenal have gone in a different direction. Let's be honest, he's not going to consider United, nor do they have the money. So I don't see other options there or other clubs in the position we're in. Wayne said, I think this chat site is the busiest in the world. Everyone is thrilled at Liverpool's business. Yippee. Thank you, sir. I'm very appreciative of everybody being in with us. What a crazy summer. Like, I don't even feel like we've fully gotten to enjoy Wirtz enough yet because we haven't seen him play. We still have that to look forward to against AC Milan. I can't wait. Honestly, I don't think I've ever been as excited for a season as I am this one coming up. It's incredible. Craig, roughly 10 minutes until the ring walk. Thank you, Alex, and everybody else in the chat. Appreciate that. A Coley 1 on point. Sweet. Right, folks, I'm going to start winding this one down then and getting settled in for the boxing. But as I mentioned, I now will be able to be here tomorrow because family dinner was moved to next week. But if you do want to get the news as quick as we can give it to you, sign up to the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp channel by scanning that QR code on the screen. And if you want to come and see us for a last ever live stage show in Liverpool, we'll be at the Hot Water Comedy Club on the 19th of October. Tickets are priced at just £15 and it is an all ages event. Other than that, my friend, I will see you tomorrow. Am I doing a late night news? No, not tonight, mate. I'm going to just sit back, enjoy the boxing, grab a shower and have something to eat. But appreciate you all joining. Do hit that subscribe button. Drop a like on the stream if you haven't done so. And I will see you tomorrow. Enjoy.